What's up, guys? Colin from Built to Wander. Behind me is my Wrangler 392, and we are continuing on with the build series down at 3D Off-Road. Today, we're going to be focusing on getting rid of that factory suspension and those stock axles to make room for some upgrades from RockJock 4x4, Bilstein, shock absorbers, and last but not least, Currie Enterprises. Before we get started, like this video, subscribe to the Built to Wander channel. Let's get after it.
All right, so like Colin said, we're gonna start ripping out the suspension, get ready to put in the new axles. We're gonna start up front today. You know, there's a few more components. It's a little more difficult, and then we're gonna jump to the rear. Once we've got all that stuff ripped out of there, we're going to install the new suspension and then get ready for the axles.
So the electronic sway bar disconnect, it's nice to have. It's a cool feature, but it's also prone to failure. So we're replacing this with an anti-rock sway bar from RockJock, which will never fail, and also provide plenty of stability, but flex when we need it off-road.
So where we're at right now is we're removing this crash bar that Jeep has put on. Not sure why they only put it on the passenger side. I don't know, it really doesn't matter, but it's coming off.
All right, now Matt has the shocks removed. We pulled all the brake line sensors and everything off the axle. So then we got the shocks out. So my turn to pull the control arms, and then this front axle will be free and we can remove it. So we're gonna keep moving on. Okay, I got the control arms loose, pulled the bolts, almost dropped the axle, so I'm gonna let Matt actually pull it out of there so that I'm not the one to really make some stuff. That's a big step, dude. And literally all we have to do is just hit the frame side bolts on all 4 control arms, and the front is pretty much stripped. And then we will start tearing apart the rear.
All right, so now we got the front end all tore apart. Colin got the control arms all taken out, front axles out and loaded back in the truck. Now we're gonna start on the rear, kind of the same process. Sway bar, shocks, control arms, unhook all the wiring, and get this axle ripped out of here.
All right.
It's so cute.
Audi. Boom.
Boom, shakalaka.
Sick. Sick. All right, we have a full floating Jeep. So the front and rear axles have been removed, all the factory suspensions taken off, front and rear sway bars. So at this point, we are ready to start reassembling with upgraded components. So we're gonna start in the rear. We've got a Currie Platinum 70 rear axle to install, along with a RockJock Pro Edition short arm suspension system, Bilstein shocks, all bolt on, should go pretty smoothly. So we're gonna start unboxing some parts and get right back after it.
We got the sway bar from RockJock. We're getting ready to install to the rear. We've lubed up the bushing in here so that way it'll help that slide through.
Just a little touch of bling.
All right, so we are buttoning up the rear end. This came together really nicely and honestly much faster than I really thought it would. So I want to start by talking about shocks. So we've got a 2.5-inch Bilstein 8100 DSA shock. This is the 2-inch stock shock that came on the Jeep. So for one, this thing has 12 inches of travel, which will allow us to get a lot more flex as the suspension cycles. But two, this has dual speed adjustability, which is an all new shock from Bilstein. So there's adjustability in high and low speed. So you can really tune the ride to what you plan to do with your vehicle. Now, moving on from the shock, we've got a Currie Platinum 70 rear axle. This is a high pinion, which raises the rear drive shaft by 2 inches. It's got the rotated center section, so it allows you to get over obstacles with that hardened steel skid plate underneath. It's also got 40-inch spline shafts, 488 gears, Eaton E-lockers. It is going to be really strong for the power from the 392 and hold up well to a 40-inch tire. We've got RockJock short arm. This is all bolt-in. We did do lower aluminum links just for the look. I thought it looked cool to have some bling under here. And speaking of bling, we've got their billet aluminum anti-rock sway bar arms, and of course the anti-rock sway bar here in the rear end, so that'll keep everything nice and stable. So lots going on here. It's also really simple, but it's a ton of strength. This is going to be a really sick setup, and now we'll be moving on to the front.
All right, so we've got the axle on the stand. We've just swapped out this joint for took the bushing out and swapped it out for a joint. We're gonna go ahead and cut this bracket off. We're running a 3-link. It really doesn't need to be there. It'll just kind of clean up things underneath, and then we'll just repaint the housing a little bit to make it look good. All right, so we got the bracket all cut off. I really hated cutting off this really nice bracket, but it's all cut off. We got the axle all cleaned up, ground down, so it'll look good when we get it all painted, and we're ready to start assembling. So,
All right.
just get her done. All right, so we got the front axle all bolted in. We've got the shocks bolted up. But right now it's just hanging drooped out. We're gonna wait to mount the reservoirs until the bumper's on, just so we can make sure that we gain all the clearance that we can. We're waiting on the caliper brackets to get those bolted up. Tomorrow we're gonna finish up getting the wheels and tires mounted and really just kind of get everything buttoned up and bolted on tight.
All right, continuing on with the suspension and axle upgrades. So we did cut off that upper control arm mount on this Currie front Platinum 70. We sanded that down. I've got some gloss black touch-up paint to make it look like it was never there. Then we're gonna be installing the front anti-rock sway bar, making some upgrades on the steering side. We've got a tie rod and drag link to add, as well as a power steering pump from PSC Motorsports. And then finally, we'll be mounting some KMC beadlocks on 40-inch Nitto trail grapplers, getting those on the Jeep and letting this thing hit the ground for the first time. So end of day, we should have a roller, and then we got plenty of more work ahead of us. Oh, cool. All right, so in my hands is a aluminum tie rod from RockJock. So what comes with the Currie Platinum 70 is a steel tie rod with rare parts ends. Solid joints, but these standard jam nuts tend to come loose. And if you jam this thing into a rock hard enough, it's going to bend and hold that position. The nice thing with aluminum is there's a bit more flexibility. So if we hit a rock, it'll return to that nice straight position. But also, we've got heavy duty rare parts ends and these rock nuts from RockJock. These rock nuts are so much nicer than a traditional jam nut. There's a tapered end, and so when you get them tightened and cinched, they do not budge. So we will never have to worry about this coming loose and this tie rod spinning, which when you add a PSC ram assist to this and the tie rod spins, it jacks up the ram. So it's just one of those things we won't have to worry about. And I also like how shiny and bling bling this aluminum tie rod has. So it'll be fun to swap that out. God damn. All right, my favorite part of every single build is mounting wheels and tires. So we've got a set of 40-inch Nitto trail grapplers, one of my all-time favorite tires out there. We've run it on many of my builds, and I'm excited for it to be underneath the new 392. We also have a set of KMC forged Mesa beadlock wheels in size 17, going to be super lightweight, super strong. They look sick as hell. So really excited to get these mounted. This is also a tedious process. It takes forever because there's just so much involved. You basically gotta anti-seize every one of these bolts, especially in a place like Colorado, in case you ever have to pull the wheel off. And then once those are done, put them all in, start them by hand, and then I zip them with like a smaller impact, and then I go through a torque every one of them. So you end up going around the wheel like 6 or 7 times. By that point, then we're adding air. So mount 5 of these things, we get 4 of them up underneath the Jeep, and we'll be able to see that build start taking shape. Dude, great weekend in the shop.
What
all did we accomplish today?
So today was not a lot, but it was. We got the front sway bar mounted, we got the power steering pump mounted, the cooler, the new tie rod installed, we got the rest of the wiring buttoned up, and we're just waiting on some brackets for the front calipers, and we got the beadlocks and tires mounted. So,
and by we,
super
you mean
pumped.
Me.
You did, yes. Yeah, good job with that. High five. So
right.
yeah, no, it was great. It was a good weekend, good day today, really, to get that small, tedious stuff done. So
yeah.
So now we're going to mount these on the Jeep, drop it on the ground. We'll get a first glimpse at kind of what the stance is going to look like. Of course, we don't have any of the armor. It's still at the paint shop. So hopefully in a week or two.
Get drive shafts measured.
Yep.
Get that stuff on order. And
yeah, so there's some little things we'll do in the meantime, but stoked to get these KMC wheels and Nitto truck grapplers mounted and call it a day.
Lift up.
Perfect. Looks nice. All right, just like that, we have one of the biggest parts of the build knocked out. We've got the RockJock 3.5-inch Pro Edition suspension system installed, Currie Platinum 70s, some Nitto 40-inch trail grapplers, and 17-inch KMC beadlocks. Absolutely love the stance. Cannot wait to get this thing out on the trails in Moab. Stay tuned. Next, we'll be getting Adams drive shafts installed. We'll be dialing in the PSC hydraulic steering assist and some other odds and ends as we wait for armor to come back from paint. Guys, drop me a comment below. Let me know what you think of the new suspension and axle setup. And as always, hit the like button if you did and subscribe if you haven't. Until next time, wander on.